Hi, this is Jeff Koplinski with ELAN, and today we are going to be going over the Event Map tab in the ELAN software configurator. So the Event Mapper is really what can set a home control system apart from a home automation system. A lot of the dealers out in the market are just concerned about controlling AV devices and subsystems, and very few take advantage of the Event Mapper tab to really give the end user a feel of automation. So it's really what sets it apart from controlling a system and automating the system. So this is the first in a series of modules on the event map. This is going to be a very basic kind of just overview of tab by tab of what's all involved in here. So we're going to start at the top. The first option we've got here is global options. So you have one metric here that you can change, basically just enabling or disabling event maps. The reason we put that in there is a lot of times when people get heavy into the event maps here, they'll have multiples, 50 to 100 event maps, and more often than not, if you're not careful, you have one event map trigger another event map that'll trigger another event map, essentially driving the usage up of the controller, and you get yourself an event map loop there. So we put this metric in here to disable them globally. Once they're disabled, you can go in and figure out where the issue is. So your next tab down is the actual event map portion. So we're going to right click, we're going to add new event map. We'll just call this one test because we're just going to do an overview. So there's a 3-box configuration here. We've got subsystem events, subsystem conditions, and then commands. Essentially the way I train this and kind of wrap my head around it is up here, the top box events. This is what's going to trigger the event map. The commands is what's going to fire off after the event is seen by the controller. So essentially think of anything in this top box as our trigger. When the controller sees whatever is in this top portion here, it will fire off everything in the commands portion down on the bottom. And then we put the conditions term in as well to set a variable. If you only wanted it to do during a certain time of day, if you only wanted it to do if a certain source or a certain device was already in use, you'd be able to use conditions. And these are essentially just true-false statements. Now again, this is just a quick overview of the event map. The other modules in this series will get into detail and show actual examples of the event maps that we're showing you. So this is our event map tab. Now the next tab down is booleans. Basically these are flags. These are just a flag and point, or think of it as a an on and off statement. Most common time booleans are used for is to set conditions to only have specific events happen during a certain time of day. Basically you could define if you only wanted the front door lock to accept a user code or to be unlocked all the time during, say, 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock when the kids come home. You'd use the booleans to define that time of day that you wanted that to activate. And again, we're going to get into booleans when we get into some event map examples in further modules. Next tab down is our variables. So variables is essentially just a numeric value. So we add a variable and we define a value from the start. So essentially we can tie any action to either increase, decrease, or set the variable to a specific metric, specific value. A lot of times these are used in variables when we're getting into doing UIs for video wall, tiling configuration with third-party video products. Also a lot of times if you want to do multiple taps on a keypad, a triple tap, 10 tap would trigger off the panic alarm of a security system. So variables are used more common than not in our event mapper if we want to capture a metric to change a value when that action has occurred. The next one down we have are run once system timers. So essentially these timers are only triggerable once. We can add a system timer, then we set the base time in seconds. So a lot of times there's two ways to do timers. We can do delay executions within the event mapper, which we'll get into in a later module, or we can set timers themselves. So say once I hit the goodbye system mode on my touch panel as I'm leaving the house, we may want to execute a 20-second timer before it arms the security system and checks to make sure the doors are locked and the garage doors closed to give you time to exit the house, get in your car, and take off. So that's basically what we're using with our run once system timers. The next one down is repeating system timers. So most commonly, what I use the repeating system timers really is to check status in something. So if I consistently want to poll the status of a door the status of a Boolean flag, the status of pretty much anything that's integrated into the subsystem list. Basically just define the duration. So how often do we want to pull? So say I would want to pull my garage door just to check status on it. Maybe I want to check it every 10 seconds. So my event time here would be 10 seconds. Time that as garage door timer. Now later on I can add this into my event map to constantly pull status of the door every 10 seconds. If I find out that the door is open, then I can use that to trigger different metrics, send out notifications, so on and so forth. And the last one down here is our timed events. So timed events basically are determined if you want any action to occur at a specific time of day. So the two most common I've got in there already, sunrise and sunset. What's nice about these is you can name them specifically to how you're going to access them in the event map currently. But then you can also do relative to sunrise, relative to sunset. You can do exactly at a specific time. And then you have your days of the week to execute. These are really common if you only want to trigger stuff at a specific time of the day. So sunrise, sunset, two very obvious ones. Sunset, I want to turn on all my exterior lights. Sunrise, I want to turn them all off. And this will track with timing and time change and everything through the clock timing within the controller. So this isn't something that has to be changed as our clock changes because it follows the astrological clock, the location of the sun for sunrise and sunset. So that is a 1,000-foot overview of the Event Mapper tab. We're going to have some other modules that'll go in detail and give specific examples. And we hope you continue watching. Thanks.